May God give us his blessing, and may all the ends of the earth stand in awe of him. One summer, many years ago, I spent that time on a camp. So on the northern, it was part of the neck of the Elk River in Maryland. And I had two positions that summer. I was the chaplain and the high ropes course instructor. Tell me if you believe. The favorite counselor, the one that everyone wanted, his name was Wade. He was amazing. Everyone just loved Wade. We like to give him a hard time, though. It was a Christian camp, and whenever it was raining like it is today, and he had to cross the campus, we would all sing, "Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water." You know the song, right? It's a great one. God's gonna trouble the water. That is at the heart of our gospel story this morning. That's what the guy is waiting for. The legend that accompanies that particular gospel story goes that an angel would trouble the water. And everyone would wait around for that moment when the water would bubble up or move or something was happening. And they would say, aha, something's happening in that water. That's when the healing is going to take place. And you had to race. You had to be the first one in there to receive that blessing and that healing, or otherwise, you missed it. You missed it. There are all sorts of people that were gathered there hoping for that one moment, hoping that maybe they would have their moment of healing. Now, we all have our hopes and dreams and things that we pin our futures on. Maybe you have symbols of those. There's a well-worn story of a town out Midwest that was going through a horrible drought, and it was based on agriculture. So their economy would crumble, they would go hungry, everything was really going to go down the tubes if they didn't get some rain really soon. So they would pray for rain, and they would hope for rain, and they would wish for rain, and everyone was a little bit depressed. A local pastor got all of the different groups together, no matter what their religious background, and said, "We're going to have a prayer vigil tonight, and I want all of you to bring with you some object of faith, something that you have that means something to you, an object of faith." And that night, the whole town came out, and some people, he noticed, had the Bible that had been handed down for 5 generations. One guy had his mother's rosary. You can imagine the sort of things, crosses and necklaces and things like that, family heirlooms perhaps, objects of faith. And then he noticed one little girl standing by the wayside, and he brought her into the center of them. Because he says, she has a true object of faith that she brought with her, because she brought an umbrella. What are those objects of faith for you? What are those things that symbolize, I have hope? What are those things that you carry around with you? Maybe it's that sort of thing that you would run into the burning house for, that one thing that you would keep. Maybe there's something, that necklace, that Bible, whatever it is, that's an object of faith for you. Because we carry around all sorts of things with us, both physically and mentally. I fear, however, that most of the things we carry around with us are not objects of faith, but objects of despair, anger, helplessness, hopelessness. Look at the fellow who is there by the pool of Bethesda. He is the epitome of despair. He's been ill for 38 years, the text reads. Jesus found out that he had been waiting at that pool for a long time. When Jesus asks him the rather obvious question, "Do you want to be healed? Do you want to be made well?" The fellow didn't answer duh or a simple yes, but he complained. "Do you want to be made well? Do you want to be healed? I just can't get there in time. I've got no one. I've got nobody in my life to even help me. I am sick and I am at the end of my rope. Whenever the water is troubled, I try to get up, but because I have no one to help me, by the time I get down there, somebody else has made it in there before me. He is full of despair. I can't help but wonder if that mat, the only possession it mentions that he has, is that his ultimate symbol of despair and hopelessness. What is it that you carry around with you that's a symbol of hopelessness, of despair? Even the things we think are objects of faith can be the other. One of the things that is the symbol of hope for so many people in this country is the almighty dollar bill. But that can be just as much a symbol of despair as anything else is. It's that dollar that you don't have. It's the money you need to do this next thing, to get out of that job, to get into that nursing home, whatever it is. That dollar that you lay down on the counter can be just as much a symbol of, well, now I don't have that dollar anymore. As someone who's about to send his daughter to college, I know about that. But other things are the same way. Sometimes we have a picture that we put up on the bulletin board. One day I'm going to buy a boat like that and I'm going to travel around the world. It could also be a symbol of, I haven't gotten there yet, and I have no idea how I'll ever get there. Or those mementos from the past, they could be wonderful symbols of the things you've been through in your life, or they could be symbols of what used to be and is no longer. Could be just as depressing as anything else. We have baggage full of objects and symbols of despair. What are we going to do with them? We're going to come to church, for one thing. Although coming to church can be difficult too. I have a distinct memory of my grandfather down in Ocean City, Maryland. If you know Ocean City at all, it's a thin strip of land with the ocean on one side and the bay on the other. And the church that they helped build from scratch and become a wonderful Episcopal church was across the street from a very large Roman church. And the service times were a little bit off. And when people would realize in the Roman church that they might not have parking, they'd sneak over into the Episcopal church parking lot. And they'd walk over. And you'd come to church, and all of the spots were already filled, and there's no one in your church. You're thinking, how is that possible? So they asked the leadership, please don't do that. And they would make announcements, but every once in a while, someone would still come into their parking lot. And one guy comes flying into that parking lot as my grandfather's going into the building. And he says to him, excuse me, you can't park here, because the guy got out and was running over to the other church. The fellow gave him a personal salute with his hand that one gives and said something a bit stronger than, forget you, I've got to get to church. Well, yes, you do. Over the years, our family have come up with wonderful responses to that guy. My grandfather was just in shock, but of course, we came up with all kinds of wonderful responses later. Yes, in fact, you do need to get into church. Because there's something in us that we need to get rid of. There's something in us that we need to let go of. We need to bring those objects of despair, those trinkets of hopelessness, and lay them before God. Now, I get that we all want to give God our very best selves, and that's nice to an extent. If you come before God and you dress yourself up nice, you get all cleaned up, and you present God, and you say, here I am, Lord, I am praying to you, thanking you for all of the wonderful things in my life, maybe using one of the nice prayers that are in the 800 section of the prayer book. Something nice, but you feel horrible, then you're lying to God. Lying to yourself, but you're certainly lying to God, as if God doesn't know better. As if God doesn't know better. The beauty and the uniqueness of the Christian gospel is that God wants the true you tchotchkes of despair and all. Because the truth is that God is big enough to take it, and you're not big enough to keep it. So think on those objects that represent all of that despair, and can you let them go? Can you come here this morning and let them go? Something's happening in the water. I don't know what it is. I can't seem to get a hold of it. But maybe it's then that I realize that it's not something that you can hold on to at all. And that's the point when you're ready to receive it. This morning, I invite you to think about those objects of despair and let go of them. It would be far better to hold on to some sort of totem or symbol of faith and lay down the symbols or totems of despair. But even those totems of faith, eventually, we're going to let those go too. In the reading from Revelation, we had this beautiful vision of the heavenly Jerusalem, the city of God. And in that city of God, the ultimate symbol of worship and togetherness with God, the temple itself, was not there. John said, I saw no temple there because God was there. There was no need for sun or moon or lamps because God was there. Eventually, we'll be able to let go of those things too, those objects of faith, and just have the faith itself. But in the meantime, it's enough to let go of the totems of despair and hold on to those items of faith. Wade deeply into that water, because God's going to trouble it, and you're going to come out all the different on the other side.